The concept of a 9 to 5, 8 hours a day, I think is probably obsolete, driven by AI.
We will see agents at scale within organizations, and then we will see agents plus human working together. Some functions will disappear completely. If we reach a level of maturity of replication of intelligence, what's left for us is judgment. Junior people, most of their job is around intelligence. Because we have AI today, you can put Claude to do everything that a junior person can do.
Use the AI to inform decisions, but bring humanness to the leadership seat. You need to learn how to learn. If you give me somebody that can learn anything fast, that person is probably my top talent.
Entrepreneurship is all about the passion that you've got to do something. Money is just an outcome. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Human Orbit podcast. Joining me today is another serial entrepreneur who started a bunch of companies in an area that I'm super passionate about. He's been in talent workforce. With me today is Williem Martiz, and I'm very happy to have you, Willem, with me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Mahmoud. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, Willem, I wanted to start from exactly your area of expertise. So you obviously started a bunch of companies around talent, workforce, and HR, or let's say in the L&D space. I'm sure you've got a perspective on AI, and I wanted to show you something. I'm not sure if you have seen this, but I wanted to show you something. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so here, this is something was released by Anthropic, and they selected a bunch of functions and jobs.
Yeah.
And they did like a map on what the LLMs are doing today and what potentially will be done in the future.
Very good.
So, for example, here they say legal will be completely done by LLMs, computer and math, business and finance, software engineering, and so on. So, do you think that we will see that massive disruption to jobs as we anticipate, and Anthropic is claiming this will happen?
Yeah, I do think we are already seeing a massive impact on jobs. Not necessarily what most people or the doomsayers would say is a massive loss of jobs, but a massive transformation in what jobs would look like, what type of jobs will survive, how people will work. I think it's also not only about the concept of a job, I think will change. The concept of a 9 to 5, 8 hours a day, I think is probably obsolete as well. And I think that will be really driven by AI.
What do you think, how it will look like? So how do you see, if I ask you to visualize this for me, how will it look like in the future?
I think it's about productivity. It's how do we get things done? So we can get a lot done with a lot of AI support, a lot of technology. When we deploy teams in organizations, how we work with people will be different. We will give people tasks to complete, objectives to achieve, and the tools to achieve those. And a lot of that would be AI tools, agents, bots, etc. People would achieve what they need to achieve. The role of the human will shift to, on one hand, working with AI, achieving things with AI, and performing different tasks. And I think over time, we will probably get more clarity in terms of what are real human tasks or human contributions. I think is probably a better word than tasks. And what our kind of roles are better left to AI to perform better and faster than us.
Interesting. So I have a take that in the future, we will see organizations set up in a human plus agent. So if we ask a question, what is an organization? An organization is a bunch of departments. And then in those departments, we have teams. And then in teams, we have people. And then these people are tasked to perform something. So whatever is the function. So my take and my theory is we will see agents at scale within organizations. And then we will see agents plus human working together. And we will see a complete different setup of how organizations and maybe some functions will disappear completely. So if I ask you, if you are a CHRO today, or a head of L&D or talent management or talent development or whatever, in a 1,000 plus company, and your job is to make sure that you are aligned with the CEO and board's strategy to survive in this wave of AI, and also to make sure you have a future-ready workforce, which obviously maybe it's the context of agents plus human. How would you tackle this transformation?
First, I want to make sure that people also have a kind of a understanding that the impact of AI will be different based on the type of organization. So if I'm a CHRO of a knowledge-based company, a Google or a consulting firm, the impact and the role of HR will be completely different to the impact on a hospitality company where that's relying a lot more on frontline workers. And again, the impact will be completely different on an industrial company where there's a lot of labor work. So yes, there will be an impact on all three of those categories and maybe other categories as well, but it will be different. So I think the chief HR officer's role is firstly to, when you hear an influencer or an AI thought leader or an AI expert say, hey, the impact will be X and Y, first test that on your specific organization, both the type of organization that you're running and then also your specific organization. Is this true for us? What is true for us and what will be the impact on us as an organization and our industry and so on? I think there's going to be interesting strategic choices as well. And one strategic choice might be to be a 100% human organization. So as a chief HR officer, I might look at this and say, what's the strategy for our organization? Our organization want to play this role or that role, and we want to be positioned in a certain position in the market. And as a chief HR officer, I might interpret that and say, in that case, let's be a 100% human organization.
But if your competitor is using AI and then you are losing in business, how are you going to cope with this?
Again, so this is a different strokes for different folks. So if your competitors using AI to get stuff done, like producing digital content, that the end client might not know the difference, whether it was produced by AI or not. But if the end client knows the difference between a cup of coffee that was lovingly produced by a human barista and a cup of coffee that was made by a robot, then I might say, hey, if I'm running a chain of coffee shops with franchises all over the world, I might make a strategic decision and say, actually, I don't want AI to automate. I don't want robots. We are going to go for a definitively human experience. And that's a strategic choice that the chief HR officer might make. And that might be the competitive edge as opposed to the cost savings or the productivity increases.
So one of the other things I like about you particularly is the way you see the correlation between universities and what the market needs in terms of talent and human capital. So are you worried about the new generation? That's the first one. Are you worried about the upcoming generation that are now at universities?
I wouldn't put a blanket worry statement over it, but I do think that there are some things that we need to be concerned about and say, hey, currently how the world is set up to prepare young talent for the future of work or the future of being is not probably optimized or is not accurate. It's not the way, we're not preparing people for what the future is going to be like. So I do think we need to rethink how we prepare people for that future. And it's not only the simplistic things. I think you hear a lot of simplistic solutions to this and say, hey, we need to rethink education and we need to teach people different things. That's important too. But it's also about what are the life skills that people need.
Life skills.
Life skills.
Interesting.
Also, what are the expectations that they go into the workforce with? If as a parent, you're still telling your kids, hey, go and get a degree so that you can get a great job at a big company, I think you're probably killing them and you're probably not getting them to think in the right direction. If, on the other hand, you say, hey, you need to acquire skills of the future, whatever they might be, we actually don't know, but they are evolving as we speak. You need to learn how to learn. You need to learn to be a lot more adaptive. You need to learn to be a lot more independent. Those are the types of things that I think will set the talent of the future up to be more adaptive and resilient to whatever comes, because we actually don't know what's coming. We actually don't know what the future of work will look like. So we need to prepare young talent to be adaptive to the shifts and the changes, which will also just be revolving and evolving faster and faster.
To be honest, I'm personally worried, and I'm worried for a reason. So one partner at Sequoia wrote a piece of paper that is amazing. I think everybody should read that. I'll send you that later. So what he said is intelligence versus judgment. And if you look at what AI is doing today, is trying to replicate the intelligence of the human being. And if we reach a level of, let's say a very good maturity of replication of the intelligence of the human being, then what left for us is judgment. So what is the job of a CEO? The job of a CEO is to make very small decisions to set the direction of the company and to achieve a specific outcome. And junior people, for example, someone who just got graduated, actually most, if not 99% of their job is around intelligence, because they will not make big decisions, and big decisions is around judgments. And for me, the challenge is not if they can get a job or not, or they do or not. For me, the challenge is to go from a junior person to someone very senior, and the experience and the expertise that you can get along when you work with teams, and to reach a level where you can make decisions. So because we have AI today, you can put Claude to do everything that a junior person can do. Anything you can imagine: finance, marketing, sales, whatever. We were talking about OpenClaw, how we are using OpenClaw to set up agents. And that's the challenge. So we don't have an environment where we put them, to learn and to grow with the organization. I'm not sure if you agree with this, but this is how I look at it.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, and if you have, let's say, a power at, let's say, a level of someone who is running a country, what kind of decisions that you think should be done to protect our people and our human beings?
I want to use the word inspiration. Strategy and executive decision-making can probably already be informed and be made better by the top AI models. I'd say if I wanted to make a good strategic choice around the strategic direction, and I feed an AI model the right context data, it will probably be better at making an objective decision or an objective recommendation based on all the variables and all the possible scenarios that could spin off from the different options that we are facing. If we think that the best leaders of the future will be the people who are able to make those strategic choices, then I think we're probably underestimating AI. Which brings me back to the word inspiration. So a leader who's able to then say, to help to use AI to get the right data, unpack the right options and strategies and possible repercussions, and look at it holistically, then make the decision, stand by the decision, and inspire teams around them to actually execute and make that vision happen. So that inspiration, I think, will become more and more the critical attribute that we want from leaders.
Interesting. But do you think we have enough leaders that have this kind of mindset, is to really inspire in a pragmatic, practical, every leader can inspire people. But can we inspire people to achieve this? That's the other question we have.
For sure. I think probably how we choose leaders will have to change. Because right now the talent identification systems, how chief HR officers look at their talent pool and how they decide who has the right potential for leadership, that model is shifting and should be shifting. So if you are still identifying your key leadership talent potential pool based on the old mechanisms and the old attributes, then I think it's time to rethink, to say, all right, so who will be the leaders of the future? So it's going to be, in my opinion, a lot more about being human. Who can bring humanness, nurture, care, inspiration to the leadership seat? Use the AI to inform decisions, to gather data and everything and get things done, but bring humanness to the leadership seat.
Interesting. And I also read a piece of paper around taste. So taste, it will be like something scarce in the future of, agents working, billions or trillions of agents around us. That's very interesting. So as a serial entrepreneur and, particularly in the space of people, L&D, talent, and so on, if I ask you, give me one single skill that every human being should have, what would it be?
It would be a toss-up between adaptability and learning. And the two are probably very tightly integrated, the ability to learn fast and adapt fast.
Interesting.
If you give me somebody that can learn anything fast and who has that mindset that I can learn anything fast, that person is probably my top talent in my talent pool.
Is this a skill that can be learned?
For sure, yes. It's a mindset that can be taught, and underneath that mindset are very specific skills. In fact, to some extent, learning skills are very technical skills. It can be as technical as how do you prompt an LLM to teach you something. It's a technical skill.
Yeah.
And then there's a mindset skill, an attitude component to that as well. So learning agility is a box of stuff. It's a box of technical skills and mindset and attributes that together empower me for the future. And yes, we can develop that.
Interesting. So obviously you went from a corporate career as a group organizational development manager at a very traditional company, and it was a global mining group, to founding your first company, which was like an online learning platform. And this was in 2003. This is fascinating. So tell me, what did you see in technology at the time to start building something like this, which is helping people to learn online? This is fascinating. So what did you see exactly at that moment, to start this business?
Yeah, at the time I was working for a global mining company, and part of my role was to implement digitalization strategy for HR and learning. So we implemented, which was at the time one of the first e-learning or corporate-wide e-learning systems or learning management systems for the group. And we had a lot of people approaching me and say, hey, can we come for benchmark visits? Can we see what you have done and how you are deploying e-learning within this group? And I realized that that's an opportunity to go out and consult. So in a way, the way I started was a little bit opportunistic in time and space. And from there, we just realized that there's a big opportunity for online learning. I looked at it and I was like, wow, we can just take learning to masses at a fraction of the cost. To be honest, in the beginning, I think the value proposition for e-learning was really about the scale and cost.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the value proposition is a lot more back to what is learning really about. So we can now use online learning or digital technologies to learn the way we were supposed to learn. One of the companies that I founded was called NoMoreCourses. And the reason for the name NoMoreCourses was basically to say that the concept of a course where everybody learns the same thing at the same pace and not even learn directly from the expert, we don't have to do that anymore, because that's embedded in the concept of the course. With technology, everybody can learn what they need to learn, when they need to learn, just enough, just in time. They can learn directly from experts. They can learn with different learning styles. So all of this we have available now through technology. So we don't need the concept of the course anymore.
Now, take me back. So I'm sure, a lot of people were resistant at the time. So people today are still resistant to, to technology, and especially in learning. I know that you are a business person, you are not a technical person, but, to start, an edtech company at the time, and I'm assuming lots of people were resistant about this kind of things. How did you first learn about, implementing, or let's say building something from a technology perspective? And second, how did you overcome the resistance part from people?
Yeah, I think for me, it was more about what is the potential impact? What's the potential gain that we can get from technology? And then bringing in the right skills and people that can help me execute this. So in the early days, we were selling e-learning as a concept. It was not like companies said, oh, we want a learning management system, or we want an e-learning course for X and Y. We would go to companies and say, did you ever hear of e-learning? Do you know what it can do? So it was really raw, selling the concept and the possible benefits. And so when you sell the benefit, you have to actually deliver those benefits. You have to deliver those results. So we would focus more on the business results and then bringing in the technical resources to execute it. At the time, it was a little bit raw as well. It was just the standards like SCORM and learning management APIs were just evolving at the time. So on the positive side, we also had a lot more leeway to be experimental and to do innovative things. Later, as industry standards evolved, there was more of a context within which you had to play. So if you create an e-learning course, you had to publish it in this format so that it can play on a learning management system. And so it became a lot more restrictive over time. But in the beginning, it was very free and open and innovative.
So this company is Calio, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you have to start it today with AI, how would you do it differently?
From the AI and technology perspective, obviously I would resource it differently. So I would think a lot more around, I think I would start from what is the role that technology can and should play in learning? So if this is a company that wants to solve in the space of learning, what role should AI play? And then kind of back engineer from that and say, okay, so these are the biggest problems that are unsolved right now within a space of a lot of change in the learning and education space. These are unsolved problems. And how can we solve those problems using technology, whether that's AI or other technologies? But I think it would be very much a problem-based approach and reverse engineer the offer or the product from there.
So the thing that I'm struggling a little bit with is you mentioned the skill of learning, and it is very, very important because I started to rethink myself. I say, okay, so if I assume that learning is one of, let's say, the most important skills, what is the impact on Mahmoud if I am a good learner? And I agree with you. I think as a person who is so curious, and I'm curious to an extent that you cannot imagine. I constantly try to understand things. I actually spent the other day 3 hours watching Jensen, the CEO and the founder of NVIDIA, learning about how GPUs, CPUs, the racks, how the compute is working, how it is impacting the LLM space, the connection between energy and LLM and the GPU and so on. 3 hours of content. And the thing I wanted to get you is learning in 2003, it's not like learning in 2026. So if we look at the history, so we've got computers, then we have seen networks, then we have seen internet, then mobile, and technology just, evolves by time. Now, what's the difference between someone who is keen to learn with AI and someone who is learning in let's say, a traditional way? Because I know a lot of people, they still love to read books.
Yeah.
They don't want to use, for example, iPads or to use, electronic devices. And I think this will distinguish a lot of, new skills in the future. So how do you look at this?
I think if you ask somebody who says that I still prefer to read a book, and you kind of break that down and say, right, so what is it about reading a book? What is the neural pathway that makes them learn better from reading a book? And then design accordingly. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the book. It's not about the pages that they flip. It's a certain neural pathway, a skill that they've developed over time on how to learn. So if we can basically design in a modern way where we use the same neural pathway to learning for that specific individual, then they can still learn in a way that feels familiar to them and in a way that actually gets the learning result. So I don't think it's a must that you have to learn in this way. You have to go on to Claude and ask Claude to give you a learning pathway and do exercises and so on. I think there are different ways of learning, and we will continue to innovate around how we make those learning pathways available to people.
Yeah, I agree with this because myself, the best way to consume content for me is by listening. I spend a very good amount of time listening podcasts, 3-4 hours a day, just learning technology, business, entrepreneurship. Very interesting. So if you have to be very extreme on the status of technology and the workforce, what is the thing that you see no one has spoken about yet?
The big thing that we are currently missing when it comes to technology impact on workforce is probably how society will be different. So if you unpack almost the cause and effect, as I mentioned earlier, I think the way jobs are structured will be different. So people will work less. Maybe less people will work in the traditional sense. And that impact on society where less people are actually working, spending less time at work, how do we address the income equalization in that? How do we address the societal impact? So I think our bigger problem to solve is probably more societal problems and how we will live together as human beings, how we will be, how the family structures will be impacted, how income structures will be impacted. That's the bigger problem to solve than the actual work and how work happens. I think how work happens will evolve, and because there's innovation and evolution of these things all the time, but we are at a bigger risk of actually leaving behind the impact on societies.
Very interesting. I like this. So let me get back to Galileo people. So you started in 2003. And to my knowledge, you sold the business in 2018 to Cornerstone. Cornerstone is one of the biggest learning platforms in the world.
Yeah, we didn't sell to Cornerstone. Cornerstone was one of the products that we were representing. So I sold the company in two different transactions, one to a company called LRMG and another to a company called TTRO.
Okay. So anyway, so my point is you spent 15 years of building. Two questions. One, did you cry when you knew that you are not going to be part of this anymore? Second, what was the moment that you know that you are not building anymore? I want to get to these two things.
Yeah, actually, that's been a big part of my being over the last few years since I sold Kaleo. Firstly, I did not really cry at the time of the transactions. In fact, there was a sense of relief because it kind of felt like, it was hard work and hard slog to build up these businesses. And neither of these businesses were super successful with lots of cash flow and so on. So even though the businesses grew steadily over time and became significant brands in the industry that I was playing in, it was tough. And so by the time I sold and put money in the pocket, it felt more of a relief at the time. Then the period after that became harder. That was where I realized that I actually lost identity.
Depression of exits, yeah.
Yeah. It was real.
Yeah.
It was initially, first you have like almost this like, wow, I'm such a great businessman. I made money, I sold companies and
You are done.
I'm done. And then, a few things happened. I started another venture that did not work. So I went from being a successful entrepreneur to suddenly a failed entrepreneur. And that, had quite a big impact on me. There was a lot of identity stuff, thinking about who I was when I was running this significant business, that everybody knew me, everybody knew my business, everybody knew this brand, at least in our small little hill. And I had people around me that, and suddenly I'm me, myself, and I, and trying to figure out life in a new city as well. I moved to Dubai.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of loss of identity and and especially then trying a new business that didn't work initially, that had a big confidence impact as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating because people think that entrepreneurship is always correlated with success and making money. And in fact, it is not at all about these two things. It is all about, the passion that you've got to do something and the moments that you are enjoying in doing that.
Yeah.
And money is just an outcome. And when you have it, you find out, okay, that's money. It has nothing to do. So tell me, how did you end up selling the business? I want to know exactly the moment that you said, I want to sell the business.
So I'll talk about specifically the second. So basically what happened was I split Kaleo into two companies and sold it in two separate transactions. So I'll talk about the second part. It was a company called Talentech. We did online talent management. We were the African partners for Cornerstone On Demand. It was a good, profitable business. And then there was a lot of movement in that market at the global scale. So acquisitions between the top players and Cornerstone and Skills of SumTotal and all of these big players, a lot of movement. So we were the representative for Cornerstone. One of our competitors were representative for others that so at the back end got acquired. And basically that opened up the opportunity for some consolidation as the providers, the technology providers were consolidating. There was an opportunity for the actual representation in the African market to consolidate as well. So I saw the opportunity and then opened the conversation with my competitors at the time. We were friendly competitors. We did quite a few things before and we've got a lot of history together. It led to a conversation that led to, negotiations and eventually a deal that everybody agreed to.
How did you manage your ego? Selling your business to your competitor is not an easy emotional thing for a founder. How did you manage this?
To be honest, I think I can give a lot of credit to my Exco team around me. So we had a lot of collective decision making and collective evaluation around the opportunity and so on. And Talentech specifically already had a business partner that was actually more running that business than me, Ryan Silochin, if you're listening, big ups to you. And so he was more involved in running that business, and he was probably the one that spearheaded how the transaction went through, how the integration from that business into the new owners happened. So from a leadership point of view, I was more the one that managed that. And for me, it was more already a back end kind of objective financial or business transaction, to be honest.
Did you regret this?
Regret selling?
Yeah.
No. As I say, like I missed identity. I missed a lot of things about the business, and I still do. We had an amazing team. We had amazing people, an amazing brand, an amazing corporate culture. So I miss a lot of that. And I look back and say, I created that. And now that's gone. But it was a good decision at the time. And I think it was a good decision for all stakeholders involved.
Interesting. So if someone is in a position to sell their business and they ask you to give them one advice, what would it be?
So firstly, from a business strategy point of view, is when you want to sell a business, then you have to start working back from that objective and start redesigning and rejigging your business towards that goal. Because then you start doing things in a way that create more tangible value for a prospective buyer. Because at the end of the day, you're going to sell the business at a certain price earnings ratio. And the price earnings ratio can be from 2 to 15 or whatever the case might be. So you have to tactically start working at how do I get a better price earnings ratio at the end? So what are the things, for example, more steady income, more reliable clients that increases your price earnings ratio, more intellectual property within the business that increases the PE. So work tactically to work towards a better PE ratio and a better profitability. So, and then, sell at the right time for that. So that's on the strategy point.
The personal side?
Yeah, on the personal side, I'd say make sure that you understand why you want to exit as an entrepreneur, what your personal goals are for life after, and how you prepare yourself and people around you, your team. Don't underestimate the impact of this on you and your team and the people, because it's not only you that worked hard in this business, everybody else worked really hard as well. And the emotional impact is on them as well. So manage that journey together with everybody. I think that's probably something that I think we did okay, but if I had to redo it, I'd probably put even more effort into that part.
Any mistakes you regretted from this part?
Not that I can think of any specific mistakes. I just think more effort, just more communication, more nurturing, more making sure that you understand everybody and support everybody through that change and the impact of that change.
I want to close this chapter of entrepreneurship. Last question for you in this. Do you think any person can be an entrepreneur?
Yes. There are some profiles that are more likely to succeed. But I really believe anybody can be an entrepreneur. And in fact, you can, in some way, I would say everybody should be an entrepreneur. If it's whether that's a building ventures entrepreneur or whether that's a solopreneur or an independent worker, everybody should develop the skills of understanding what is the value that you have to add. How do I offer that value to the market? How do I take that value to the market? And how do I make sure that I get value in return for that? That's at the core of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship or anything. Everybody should have that skill. Even if you are an employee, you should be able to articulate better what value you bring and articulate better how you're going to receive value and what value you want to receive for the value that you bring. That's the core.
Interesting. To be honest, I think that being an entrepreneur is not an easy journey. And not everybody is ready to take some kind of risks, and it's brutal. It's not easy. So maybe I have a different perspective on this, but on the side of learning how to visualize your value the best way, and then to see how you can take it to market and monetize it in a way that can be a business. That's very interesting to me. So I'm a firm believer that sales is a core skill for entrepreneurs and people who are starting businesses. And I personally think that if someone is not comfortable with selling, or at least to learn how to sell, they shouldn't start a business. They just sit doing what they are doing today. Do you agree with this?
I'd say, again, somebody who has strong sales skills would be more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
But you can also partner with somebody who brings that. You can also bring in the right resources. So if you are an innovator and you are great at sitting in a dark room and building a product or crafting a solution that the world desperately needs, and you don't have sales skills, don't stop doing what you're doing because, oh, I can't sell, so I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. Focus first, because the first part of being an entrepreneur is solving problems for the world. If there's a problem that you care about solving, go and solve that problem. Go and build the solution to that problem, and then bring in the right resources to help you scale that and take that to the market. But you are right. If you only solve on creating the solution and you don't go out there and tell the target audience that you have the solution, you're going to fail. So you have to think about, how do I get that in front of the target audience? How do I take my solution to the target audience? And I want to say, together with this as well, when entrepreneurs tell me, oh, I hate selling, or I don't like selling, or selling is not me, don't think of it as selling. Think of it as you are passionate about solving a specific problem. And part of that solving that problem is to go and solve the problem. You solve that problem by going to the people who have the problem and say, hey, here is the solution to your problem. And even sales, the core of sales skills, I think in one of your previous podcasts, you were talking about how do we articulate and how do we sell and people who are shy about selling. It really is just about having a conversation with somebody who's in your target audience and explaining to them how you can solve that problem.
That's it.
That's it.
Very simple. But it's an art. This, I call sales. It's an art. It's not like any other thing. But tell me, how did you learn how to sell yourself?
Interesting story. When I was still in the corporate environment and I was in an executive committee where I had to present a solution or a project within this corporate environment to a senior, it wasn't exactly the board, but it was a senior executive committee that I had to present to. So I presented the solution and I was quite passionate about how this project will help the company and everything. And one of the senior execs in that meeting made a comment. He just said to me, you should go out there and be an entrepreneur because you can sell anything. Afterwards, when I actually went out there, I realized that I'm actually quite shit at selling. But the confidence that comment gave me helped me to just keep going and try and say, hey, I can be an entrepreneur. And I had to go and learn how to sell afterwards, because I would say it wasn't a skill that was natural for me. I think a lot of entrepreneurs go out and become entrepreneurs because they are salespeople. For me, that was not my entry skill. My entry skill was passion and skill around learning technologies and so on. And I was creative and innovative about creating solutions. And I had to learn how to sell. But that came because somebody gave me the confidence to go and do it.
It's very interesting how small things can change the entire life of somebody. And this is something I learned. If I see somebody is doing something great, I have to tell them, whoever is the person. So out of the things that you sold in your life, what is the thing that you most enjoyed and why?
I'd say corporate-wide learning management systems or talent management systems. I really enjoyed that because I was speaking to an audience that I understood, because I was selling to people to a chair that I sat in. So I understood the language. I enjoyed the complexity of stakeholder management. It's not just knocking on a door and tell people, okay, here's the solution and kind of bargaining a deal. It was complex, sometimes multi-million-dollar projects with a lot of stakeholders with different agendas and different preferences that you had to manage. You had to build up a business case very tactically and strategically, how you're going to execute value. You had to build up the credibility, allay all the fears. So there's a lot of complexity that went into those types of deals, and I really enjoyed that.
Interesting. Who do you think is the best salesperson on the planet?
In a way, I'd say Steve Jobs, probably because, again, I think back to the philosophy of problems, how you solve problems. I think he would present to a target audience how a solution will solve a current problem. If you just think about the touch screen and gestures on a phone, it was solving a problem. And the way he introduced an iPhone to the market was like, hey, this thing is not convenient. Here's a solution that makes it a lot more easier to achieve X and Y. And I think he consistently, the way he pitched new solutions all the time was he brought the innovation, but he didn't speak about the innovation and the features and so on. He spoke about how one by one his products solved problems that had mass appeal.
Do you know that when he was 12, he was cold calling companies to go do internships And that's how he learned how to sell.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So Steve Jobs, actually, I totally agree. He's one of the best salespeople, in the history of the human being. And the reason of that is because when he was 12, and he said that he used to call CEOs, founders, big names in the space. And I asked them, can I come to do an internship with you to learn something? And this is a skill that can change the entire life of people. And so, talking about this, do you think we should teach sales at school for kids?
Yeah, definitely. Nobody would be worse off by having sales skills.
Why is not there? I've never seen some kind of a course or something put in a way that will really add value to the people. Because for me, if somebody learns how to sell, they can do anything they want. So this is very, very strange. Why it's not there?
Let me put back the question to you a little bit and ask and give you a counter question. What are sales skills? If you say teach sales, is it to teach them how to cold call, or teach them how to listen, teach them how to close?
I think sales for me again is an art, and the art of sales is to sell without selling, which is exactly what Steve Jobs is doing, which means you articulate how you are solving the problem and you convince the other party that they will get value without them feeling that you are, pitching them or bothering them or whatever. That's the art of sales. But to reach to that stage, you need to go through, some things. I cold call minimum in my life, if I'm not exaggerating, more than 10,000 people. I picked the phone and cold called 10,000 plus people. I emailed the same thing or maybe double than that. So there are a lot of things you have to do in the process of learning the art of sales.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, what Steve Jobs has done. So picking the phone, cold calling is an input of doing sales. And when you do that, you will learn. So this is how I look at it.
Yeah, I think the reason why I asked you this question is the assumption that we're not teaching sales skills is probably not entirely true, because if you unpack what sales skills are, a lot of those kind of subsets of sales we do teach. Listening, for example, is for me one of the most critical skills. Just communication, verbal communication is a sales skill. So I think we do teach a lot of those skills. Another really good example that I want to use is probably some of the best salespeople that I know are people who know how to deal with rejection or failure, or how to deal with a no. Because how do you keep going when you're making a call and people say no? How do you just not internalize this and get up and just make the next call and keep on going? I'd say that's one of the most fundamental attributes, if you don't want to call it a skill, of successful sales. And I do think the education system teaches that attribute in some way. Just out of interest, I believe that sports is probably the best way to teach this. I think in books like Outliers. In Outliers, you see, for example, there's a very specific correlation between somebody who's in sports and learning how to fail and how they actually show up in business. So people who have been successful in sports have a higher correlation to success in business and success in sales. And I think it's because they learn how to deal with failure all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you, but there is the missing part is here, how to formalize this in a sense that it becomes a very clear skill. So the components of listening, communicating, everybody is doing that.
Yeah.
But for me, sales is about rejection, number one, and to go to people who do not know you and you start, trying to pitch them something, and then you accept the rejection. So, for example, I always say, I can cold call any person on earth. Give me any number of any person. I always tell my team, if you give me the number of Donald Trump, I will cold call him now, and I'm able to get a meeting with them when they say we are not. So that was back in the days when we were doing cold calling now. I'm not sure if it's not working, but anyways. So this part of formalizing this and putting kids to do, let's say, some simulations of selling. So you know what I'm doing with my kids? I teach them how to sell products. And I always try to put them in a scenario to learn how to negotiate, how to go to ask others to do something. And that's the missing part. So I agree. On the components, yes. The formula to make it as a skill, I'm not sure if it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example. In the community where I'm living, a few houses down, there's a family that lives there. They've got 2 daughters, I guess probably 9 to 12 years old. And this family, judging by the type of villa that they live in and the cars that they drive, they are doing well for themselves. But these daughters are always out there hustling. Then you see the daughters sitting in front, selling sweets to other kids in the community, and then they go around doing this. I mean, I bet you that those daughters will eventually graduate school much more prepared to be very successful entrepreneurs than anybody else in that community, because they are learning. They're learning through failure, and of course they are getting rejected all the time, and so they're learning to deal with that and just get back out there and try again. So yes, I think there's probably a gap, as you say, for more structured sales training in the education sector, especially in the K-12 or school education sector.
The reason I say this because I know a lot of successful, mind-boggling people that you cannot imagine how innovators they are and how, how they're able to build things, but they couldn't sell that. They couldn't sell that, so they're gone, because whatever the product you build, whatever the quality, if you don't know how to go to market or to put it in the hands of the customers, so you are not going to survive. And that leads me to the question, product first or sales first?
Product first for me.
Product first?
Yeah.
But how can you sell the product if you are not already know that you have customers? Or how to build the thing? So how to build a business, let's say, the context. So you have product sales.
I think product builds confidence. And I think it's probably a little bit individual preferences. So you would have maybe one salesperson who can get on the phone, just, build up a pipeline and say, hey, we are going to have this and we are bringing this and so on. And if you look at incubators and how a lot of startup coaches are teaching modern entrepreneurs and say, go out there and validate first, fake it till you make it. There's something to be said for that. Personally, I want to send people out there with confidence and excitement about the product that they are taking to the market. I want them to go and on that call be so passionate because they've seen this product, they've played with this product, and they know how it's going to help the target audience. So that's why I'm saying product first.
Interesting. So last question for you. A lot of people underestimate the journey of being a founder or an entrepreneur. And one of the most important things that I realized in the journey of being an entrepreneur is you need to have a partner that backs you at all time, at any circumstance. And for me, I'm forever grateful to my wife. I think, I'm not sure if I could have done this without her.
Yeah.
And I know that you have something similar. And you said that you have a personal debt with your wife. So why is that?
Yeah, I mean, this is my second marriage, and I met my current wife about 5 years ago. And at the time when she met me, I was not in a great space entrepreneurially or financially. I was kind of, recovering from failure and rebuilding. And the way she supported me through all of that, the way she believed in me and kept on making sure that I knew that she was believing in me, the way she encouraged whatever I was trying at quite a few phases where I felt quite down. She was the one who helped me keep going and helped me keep the focus and keep running. So yeah, I think having somebody around you, whether that's a life partner, parents, siblings, friends, whatever, who support your journey and who support you within the journey is very, very empowering.
That's interesting. Thank you so much, Billy. Such a pleasure to have you. I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a huge pleasure.